Hello, my name is Piper Riesinger, and I am arguing that the death penalty should be abolished. When deliberating this topic, one should be familiar with the Furman v. Georgia, 1972, and the Gregg v. Georgia, 1976 Supreme Court cases. The basic conclusions of these cases were, first, if the death penalty is carried out in a discriminatory manner, it violates the Eighth Amendment and possibly the 14th, and second, that this issue can be avoided with laws that bring clarity, discretion, and objectivity. These cases largely resolve the relationship between cruel and unusual punishment and the death penalty on a federal level. This topic has largely been exhausted in debate. Though it is worth consideration, I do not think it prudent to touch on it other than to say that the government must tread carefully in cases concerning the sanctity of life. Moving on the Justice Department's website, they have an article that outlines their duties called Functions of Criminal Justice, Procedures, Tasks, and Personnel. In it, it states that, quote, the goal of all three subsystems, police, courts, and corrections, is the reduction of crime in a community, close quote. This brings up the topic of the duties of justice. Justice, when executed, is primarily seen through three lenses: preventative, restorative, and retributive. The first is what was just talked about, and is largely mitigative and happens before the fact. The second two are carried out after the wrong has taken place and address the wrong. Restorative, the second one, is seen in scenarios similar to if you cause a car crash, your insurance needs to cover the damage, or if you commit defamation, then you need to compensate them for lost earnings or business or things of that sort. Restorative justice in legal settings is often seen in monetary compensation. The third aspect of justice is retributive. This is when a wrong is committed, a similar act will be exacted as punishment. Equal retribution, or perfect retribution, will have the punishment fit the crime exactly. These are all necessary and often overlap, but they vary in importance. It is important to keep these in mind while considering any legal action, especially when considering capital punishment. Now, when capital offense cases are being carried out, the process is very exhaustive. The government tries, not always successfully, to eliminate the possibility of false convictions. When there have been people who have been tried and put on death row only to be found innocent later. However, the government tries to prevent this from happening. The Justice Department has an entire division, Capital Cases Section, CCS, devoted to this purpose, and that is on the federal level. On the state level, there are many other layers to capital trial, and if you read the Justice Manual Title 9, it outlines the general process, which includes many steps. All of this is to demonstrate how exhaustive this process is, and there have still been errors and false positives documented. But because this is such a rigorous process, there is a huge cost. In the federal death penalty cases, recommendations concerning the cost and quality of defense representation, written by Honorable James R. Spencer and a subcommittee, it says that, quote, the average total cost for counsel and related services of authorized cases in the sample was $218,000 as compared to the $55,000 for cases in which death penalty was never authorized. According to that same report, non-attorney compensation in the first case would be $2,000, and in a capital trial it would be $53,000. Keep in mind, this is all capital trials, not just the ones where the defendant is convicted and put on death row. Many defendants go on to live a life sentence and incur costs in that way. A research article supported by the Office of Justice Programs says, quote, a New York study compared a $1.4 million cost figure for each death penalty with a $602,000 for the cost of life imprisonment for 40 years in non-capital cases. Florida has estimated that the true cost of each execution is about $3.2 million, or approximately 6 times what it would cost to keep a person in prison for life. Close quote. When you think of justice as retributive, these costs, though excessive, are necessary. Millions of dollars to exact vengeance to punish the criminal. Though it is not equal retribution, it is a painless death and does not match the crime exactly, it fulfills to some extent the requirements of retribution. In this case, retributive and restorative justice will not work in unison. It is one or the other. Retributive justice will rob restorative justice of its means. The funding required for retributive justice minimizes the steps that restorative justice can take. In an article about retributive justice from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, it says, quote, "It is implausible that these costs can be justified simply by the importance of punishing wrongdoers as they deserve to be punished. The only plausible way to justify these costs is if criminal punishments has large instrumental benefits in the term of crime prevention." Close quote. But it doesn't. Capital punishment does not prevent more crime. It does not secure safety for the citizens of the United States. It does nothing but eliminate a criminal. With the death penalty, justice caters to the punishment of the criminal when it could do so much more. The families of the victims could be better cared for, or more mitigative measures could be enforced. Instead, millions of dollars revolve around the criminal. Often in these cases the crime is so depraved and vile that even those who generally oppose the death sentence agree that the heartless killer deserves death. But when their death comes at so high a cost, we must reconsider. The criminal deserves nothing from us. Abolishing the death penalty would ensure justice is serving the people. It would eliminate needless waste on those who have long turned their back on society. And that is why we should abolish the death penalty.